Talk to me about this call-out culture and cancel culture, which seem to really happen on Twitter and social media, and it's had massive consequences for a lot of people's careers, and sometimes it feels like you can't swim against the current. So it might seem ludicrous and ridiculous, yet they're still canceled. Because sometimes the organization has to pull what's going on and now they're out. I mean, I'm thinking about Kevin Hart hosting the Academy Awards, and they found a 10-year-old tweet of his, and then they said he couldn't, and then he went on Ellen, and everyone was like, let him on, and then he wasn't, and I'm sure there's better examples, but it's like a thing to do this.
No, that's right. So the way that I think about it is there's a kind of a social fabric or a field on which everything plays out. And if you change certain parameters of the social fabric, then the game plays out very differently. So if you imagine people playing soccer, and then suddenly you make the field really contorted with huge hills and invisible lakes or ponds, weird stuff would happen. And that, I think, is what's happening to us.
And then also take a game that was played in the World Cup in 1964 and now stick it on the new field and watch how it's a mess. That's kind of what happens when you dig up the old things. Or like you said, you prosecute some parents for child abuse based on what they did 30 years ago. So, all right, go ahead.
So a really key thing to keep in mind about our moral psychology is that we do care about what's right, but we care much more about what people think about us and whether they think that we're doing something right or wrong. And a lot of what we do is designed to manipulate public perception. And so if you're in an environment, suppose you're in an environment that really values and rewards forgiveness and love and compassion, well, you're going to be more forgiving and loving and compassionate. But suppose instead you're in an environment in which you get points, and there's a meter, and you see exactly how many credits you get. You get points for criticizing someone else, for calling out someone else, for standing up for victims. You're going to be incredibly quick. You're going to be scanning the environment. How can I find somebody saying something that I can interpret as an attack on a victim group? And so you get this self-righteous display, and this is what call-out culture is. So I have to be careful not to, in a time of culture war, and it's easy to exaggerate and do black and white thinking. I have to always remember there's a reason for everything, and part of what's going on is that Gen Z, in particular, the survey research shows they don't put a lower value on free speech. They don't say, no, I don't value free speech. They still value free speech in the abstract, but they're beginning to hyper-value diversity and inclusion. That's the way that they've been raised. Those are good values. And so they are really sensitive for any kind of language or behavior that could be taken to be marginalizing or racist. And interestingly, I think it's especially white kids who don't have victim points, white kids who can't claim to be part of a marginalized group. For them, the best way or one way to get points is to prosecute others publicly. And so a lot of call-out culture is caused by, I hear this from newsrooms and other places, sort of the young recent graduates from elite liberal arts schools have this culture of getting points by calling out others. And so now that we have access to everything everyone has ever written, at least on Facebook, Twitter, things like that, there are people who literally will go, I don't like him, let me convict him. And they go back and they can find something.